This episode was so dope to record with Lillian Zhang because even though we've known each other on LinkedIn for years, we've never actually met. You may have seen her pop up on your For You page with her viral videos around Gen Z money, working in tech, or something in between. But what I loved about this episode is her transparency of being a creator while working that 9 to 5. Make sure to check out her new book, The New Money Rules, the Gen Z Guide to Personal Finance, in our show notes. And let's dive into the world of being a 9 to 5 creator. All right, Lillian. One of the biggest questions that I have is you've talked about it kind of on your TikTok previously, but you got your first brand deal around 10K followers. Can you talk us through sort of your mindset around that?
Yeah, so I actually started my TikTok in January of 2022. And before that, I had my account, but I was posting like really random, sporadic things. But I started to take TikTok more seriously, at least mentally, around that time. And I was posting like resume tips content, internship and job search content. Because when I was at UC Berkeley, I was going through a lot of the internship recruiting process. And once I got through that, a lot of students were asking me questions about various tips and ways they can stand out. And I found that I was constantly repeating myself. So I realized that posting my insights on TikTok was a lot faster to kind of like scale my knowledge and scale information. So the video that actually got me to 10,000 followers on TikTok was this resume trend video. And I'm not sure if you remember this trend, but it was basically this guy's voice and he was like, "Oh, this is great and this is trash and this is great." So I just put like a resume
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
image over the sound. It was only like 10 seconds. And a lot of people resonated with the video, and there's a lot of controversy around what makes like a good resume, what makes like a not so great resume. So from that alone, I got my first 10,000 followers in like the first 2 weeks after quote taking TikTok seriously. And the
What were you
reason,
kind of at
Mhm.
before that follower count was? Like before that big video?
Yeah, I think I was at like 800. So it was a huge jump.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's amazing. And what year was this roughly?
2022. So around 3 years ago, and essentially what was happening from that video, because it was in like the job slash resume niche, a lot of companies who were like like job search websites, like resume companies were commenting on the video. And one of the companies that commented on the video was a company that I used a lot in my college years. And so it was perfect because when they commented on my video, I literally just DM'd them from TikTok and I was like, "Hey, like I've used your product for several years and I recently grew a TikTok following. Would you be open to doing a partnership on the video?" And that's how basically a story of how I got my first brand deal. And I did a lot of research about how to charge for the first brand deal, so I felt like it was like a pretty fair rate at the time.
What was that, or what was the research that you were finding out about charging for that first brand deal? Because I think that's, at least for me, was one of the scariest things of trying to figure out. My tactic was, let me just throw a number at the wall and then just keep doubling it until someone would say no. So I started off at 200, then 400,
Oh,
then
yeah.
800, etc. But like, what was your strategy at the beginning?
Yeah, so I was researching on TikTok and there were a lot of like creators who were actually sharing their rates and I came across this one creator. I forgot her name, but she basically said like a good benchmark to start out with is take your follower count and times 5% of your base rate. And that's what I did. And I also found out that Business Insider, which is like a business publication, also does a lot of reporting on like influencers, creators, and monetization. So that was also a great resource. And actually, this exact story that I told you about the DMing the company, I actually interviewed with Business Insider to like give this like strategy that I was using. So Business Insider has been really great in like promoting like content creators and how that world works.
That's pretty dope. Do you mind saying what company it was that you did the sponsorship for, that first one?
Yeah, it was with Way Up. So they basically do like the job search listings, but they're targeted towards like the college demographic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, again, declassified in sort of that college to career niche as well, especially at the beginning. We've never done a partnership with Way Up, but I was thinking you might have done it with Handshake because I know in 2022 they were spending a lot of money on content
Oh,
creators
I did
in
as
the
well.
space.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. Shout out to the Handshake team. Love Aaron. Well, Aaron's not there anymore, but Britton, she's killing it over on that team right now.
Oh, yes. I've met a lot of them.
How did you discover your base rate? You said like times 5% of your follower count. How did you decide on that base rate number?
So, yeah, it was mostly through the research I was doing, like through other TikTok creators, and I found that it was kind of like landing with the brand reps. And I think the way that you kind of gauge whether or not it's landing is if they start to negotiate you down or if they're saying yes. So I find out if they say yes right away, you're likely charging not high enough, but if they start to negotiate you down, I think that's a good place to be because you're in their range, but like maybe their range is a little bit lower than what you were proposing. So I find that having some sort of pushback is a sign that you are sort of like valuing your content properly. So it's just kind of worked out for the last, I don't know, a couple of years I was doing this. So I mainly stick with something close to this benchmark.
Are you still keeping that 5% as your benchmark typically right now?
I think it's definitely changed because the difference between like a benchmark and what you can charge maybe a few years down the line is when you're starting out, you're more new, people don't really know your name or your face. But I think as you develop more of like a clientele, relationships, like a general reputation with your audience, I think like your name also carries weight as like the years kind of, go on and you grow and you become more of like a familiar face in the space that can also lead you to charge more than 5%. Plus things like usage rights, exclusivity, all those things also add up to a lot more than that.
How do you go about pricing now after like 3 years? Yeah, 3 years later.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, I've worked on enough brand campaigns to know like what a fair rate is for my content. And typically I just like copy and paste the numbers to various brands, and depending on the size of the brand, like what they're asking for, that can always vary because some companies might ask for more like types of content, like quantity, like usage. And depending on that, you can do like packages and discounts. So it really varies, but I'd say it's definitely more like an established process now versus when I was starting out, I was really just like guessing everything.
Hmm. I've also noticed that you mentioned you started with like student content, but now you post about like finance, lifestyle. How do you like find the balance of having like a niche? I know sponsors love it when you have a niche versus like being yourself and showing up as your authentic self. And like, how do you like focus on evolving your content these days?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I feel like a niche is good, especially for like audience retention and growth, plus like brand consideration. But also, as someone who talks a lot about finance, I don't want to like use all of my videos to talk about knowledge stuff. I also want people to know me as a person as well, which I think is really important. And so the way I do that is I like to share like facts or like parts of my life that I want to share with the audience. So for example, like maybe like basic facts about like what I do, like where I grew up, like how that was like what my day-to-day looks like, what I do for fun, and sharing sometimes more like personable topics or conversation on my Instagram stories because I feel like a lot of your loyal audience members are on Instagram. They watch like your day-to-day life on your stories. So I feel like that too is a really great way to show more of like yourself and what you enjoy doing. And then a lot of my hero, like quote hero content is like posted on my feed, which sometimes are a bit more polished and more like tips content.
It's super interesting. I think you're one of the not one of the few, but you're in this interesting spot in your creator career where you're starting to make more and more money as a content creator, but you're also still in your traditional 9 to 5 as well,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so I think the question that I have, right, is when was that moment as a creator where you were like, oh, this actually might be something that I could eventually do full time. Obviously, you might be there right now, or you're not necessarily there just yet. But I would assume once you started to feel like you could take it seriously, um, you started to put more effort into it. So when was that moment for you? Was it your first dollar? Was it your first viral video? Talk us through that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first year of doing content creation, so I was still a senior in college and I started because I had my full-time job offer, had a lot more time on my hands, and I felt like I had some things to share after like going through those experiences. So that's how I started my TikTok. And before I actually started, I follow a few influencers who also share like their like business journey. And I knew that it had the potential to become like a serious thing. But I didn't go into making content with the sole mindset of making it like a business because the main reason I was doing the content was because I was enjoying it and I felt like helping people this way was really fun for me. So that was like the main motivation. Even still now, like on tough days, it's like, what is the main motivation or purpose of me doing this to begin with? And so I realized that this could become a serious thing, I'd say like in the first 10 months. In 2022, I basically started from zero to, I forgot how many followers I had at the time, but I made like close to 50K the first year, which I thought was pretty decent for like starting from zero to nothing, pretty much. And so that's when I realized that it was like not just a fun little thing, it could be a real thing. And then as the years went on, I kept on doubling what I was making every year. And so by year three, it was becoming like a really serious thing, but I'm still doing everything and keeping everything. So it will just continue as a serious thing for as long as I can.
No, that's amazing. I mean, 50K in the first year, right? I mean, that first year you're still in college, right? Like you have the offer,
Yeah.
but you're still in college.
Yeah. So I graduated in like May and then started my job in like the fall of that year. So it was like a hybrid year, but I was basically a college student and like a fresh grad.
How did that feel? Your first instance of making internet money, but you're still in college, right? What was that like being in college and making almost 50 grand your first year?
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty insane because I feel like I was able to not like obviously not like let go of like any financial fears, but I felt like I had more flexibility in terms of how I wanted to use those resources. I could either like reinvest it into myself and the business or do things like take fun trips and do all these things that I think I would have been more stressed had I only like had my salary from my job. And so I think it just relieved a lot of like mental financial burden, but at the same time, I also knew that I was just like a regular person and I wasn't like someone who was super talented or special. And so it was also eye-opening that like a regular person like me can do this and still make an impact online.
And so awesome. Yeah, congrats. Like 50K first year and like tripling that, like doubling that every year is super, super impressive. I'm so curious, like, what did you do to help double it? Is it because like your audience is growing, negotiating higher? Did you take on like other things outside of brand deals, or how was that process like?
Yeah, so I feel like with brand deal rates at least, it heavily depends on your audience size. And I think brands are very like in tune with that. But I'd say in terms of other things that I've been doing outside of just sponsored posts, uh, I like promote some credit card referral links. And the reason why I do those specifically is because one, those are products that I already use, like my credit card, like travel credit cards, etc. And I mention it in my content. So it's like a very like natural like way in. And I don't really promote affiliate links that are like random products that I wouldn't use. So I think that's definitely something really important for creators to keep in mind, just in general. I've also sold like my own digital products and downloads. So I've sold like a expense and income tracker. I also created like a series of different spreadsheets, and you'd be surprised how many people want spreadsheets created by their favorite creator or something along those lines. So that's been really fun. Um, I also do one-on-one coaching, and that's mostly for people who want like more time with me, but want like specific advice or like a framework for what they're doing. So that's something I offer, but I don't really promote it or do it because that's like a one-on-one thing that doesn't really scale well. And actually, something really fun that happened last year is that because of my financial content, I've sort of like positioned myself as like this Gen Z financial literacy person. And several like book publishers reached out to like publish like traditional published books. So I'm actually publishing a book in a few months, and it's with Source Books, which is distributed by Penguin Random House. And so that's been super fun. But yeah, that's been a really fun project.
Wait, that's so awesome. That's like 5 streams of income. That's like the downloadables, like passive income. That's like coaching, which is active income, brand deals, affiliate links, and then you have your book coming out. What is your
Yeah,
book? And
yeah.
what's the process of like making a book?
Yeah, I've learned so much about the book industry that I had like no idea about when I first like heard about it. And essentially, I feel like publishers are always looking for new voices and perspectives, especially when, topics change, landscape's always changing. So they were looking for someone who could specifically speak to like Gen Z financial literacy and personal finance. And actually it was a really good fit because you see a lot of finance traders who are a lot older, maybe like Gen X, like that age range. And I think it's really difficult to find an author who's like in that Gen Z range who can also relate to, the financial problems and challenges that our generation's facing. So I think it'll be like a really interesting, like relatable voice in the space. So that's like the experience in terms of what that was like. And basically I had like 4 months to write it. I finished it in January, the manuscript, and from January until November, it's basically like an editing period where like edit the manuscript and we start like the marketing phase, probably the next 1 or 2 months. And yeah, it'll be super fun. And the goal would be to get as many people to know about the book as possible before the published date. So that'll be an interesting challenge because I've never had experience with book marketing before.
That's awesome. I can introduce you to some friends who are book marketing. Do you know Rose Han, YouTuber? She's like
No,
a
I
fine.
don't.
Oh, okay. She's one of my good friends. She's like I think she's like
Oh,
in
Rose. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Wait,
Invest with
I've
Rose.
oh, okay. I've watched her YouTube.
Yeah, no, she's my friend. She's also writing a book. I can connect you all. I think she can talk more about book marketing. The book about her
Oh
book is
yeah.
about how she went from like 100K in debt to become a millionaire.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's cool. I think I've seen her videos for sure. And so
Mhm.
that'll be super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought of Rose. That's so cool. I would love to buy your book. I'm also
Oh,
Gen
thank
Z
you.
trying to learn finance. I'm so curious, like, being in your perspective, what is the like number one, what are some of the mistakes younger people are making financially? Is it like pay now but like buy now, pay later thing, or like what like what kind of mistakes are they making?
Oh my gosh, buy now pay later is a huge one because it gives the illusion that debt is, this pretty rainbow sunny thing dressed up in a way that it's not. And I think it just makes people like tap into overconsumerism, like buying things that you can't afford and just like promoting this culture of, you know, bad financial habits. So that's definitely something that I think people fall into the trap of. Another one that is sort of less talked about, but also I think you guys can relate is going into debt for a college major in which you cannot get a return on investment back on. And it's like crazy that like 17 and 18-year-olds can sign away like hundreds of thousands of loans and you're not really thinking about how you're going to pay it back necessarily. Um, and I think that's a really tough line to draw or walk on because you want to like, study something that you're interested in, but also something that has like market demand that can pay back the loans you're taking out. And I think that young people aren't really educated on how the loan system works and that you have to pay interest on money you borrow. And it's not just like, oh, I borrowed $20,000 and I'm just going to return $20,000. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And there's like so many other things we can go on and on about.
What's the one thing of maybe not necessarily financial advice, but the one thing that you wish more Gen Zers understood about money?
Yes, I would definitely say so. This is like broken into several parts. I think a lot of people who are like Gen Zers or younger have this YOLO mindset in which like, oh, my 20s, my early 20s are just for relaxing and fun, and I don't need to do all the hard things now. I can just worry about my career and the money stuff in my 30s. But 20s are the most valuable time in your life because you are so young, you have so much energy, and all the habits, and even the financial accumulation that happens in your 20s will compound a lot faster when you get to your 30s and 40s if you sow the foundation now. And if you sow the foundation in your 20s, you're going to be like light years ahead of people who start in their 30s because compound interest is exponential and benefits those who have extra time. So I definitely say it's like the YOLO factor and compound interest and understanding that your efforts compound exponentially and it's not linear.
Like efforts, meaning like put some money into your IRA, put most of your money in like a high yield savings account, invest in like your skills. Like, what are some actionable
Mm.
things people can do in their 20s today to build compound interest every day for their 30s?
For sure. So on the financial aspect, you touched on the Roth IRA and investing aspect, which is definitely true. I feel that if you start, not feel, but if you start investing at least like little bits now, one, it builds the habit of like being able to put money away and like paying yourself first. Like the whole concept around that, I think is also very foreign to a lot of people, like paying yourself first before the money like leaves your accounts. So that's the habit to build. And even if you contribute like small amounts starting at 20 years old, like it really does add up over time. And a lot of the skills that you learn in your 20s and from school and your job, your real life, also, you might not see the results right now, but if you just keep going at it every single day, like the results and like the end result like will show in your later 20s or beyond. So things like learning new skills. Honestly, I've been a big proponent of like doing side quests and just like trying like random things because you never know like what sorts of activity or side thing you do can blow up. Because when I started my whole like content business thing, I think it worked well because I studied marketing in college, and so the skill sets kind of complemented each other even to my full-time job. But if I didn't try that, it wouldn't have happened today, and all these like opportunities and cool and fun things would have came out of it. And yeah, go on more side quests.
What are some side quests that you've been on or are currently going on right now? And how would they go?
In terms of, okay, so I'd say in terms of quote side quests, they kind of stemmed from one thing. Like there weren't like really separate things. So like for example, when I was in college, I had this internship where I was doing like this consulting sort of work, and from the clients that we were working with, I had like good rapport with one of the clients, and after that internship ended, we just like did like a longer term work arrangement, and I think that's just something that wouldn't have happened if I didn't try that internship or like send my resume to like 100 different places, so on. In terms of like other side quests, I'd say like from content, the whole book thing was also really unexpected to me, and I think that's just like a different side quest that can stem from like a previous side quest like content and stuff like that. So I feel like the more things you try, they kind of just build on each other and you kind of realize what your strengths are and then you just double down on it.
I like that. I'm gonna ask a question that kind of pulls back in your career brain a little bit. So, like, I've hired people, Grace, you've hired people, so I'm interested in your perspective on this as well. But I feel like the best hires are the ones that have side quests on their resume, even though those might not
Mm.
necessarily be what a lot of people think is the most important part of your resume.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
I would love your perspective, Lillian, then Grace, yours, and then I'll share sort of mine as well.
So what is your question?
Like, do you think that's true that
Oh, I
side quests
see.
are important from a career standpoint or from a like
Oh, I see.
hiring standpoint, I guess, too?
I think the biggest thing is like a professional development standpoint because if you have those experiences, that makes you automatically more unique and stand out against, I guess, other candidates if you're going for like the traditional corporate route. And for example, The biggest reason why I got a lot of my internships was because when I was in middle school, I ran this YouTube channel and I created like these handmade plushies, stuffed animals, and had this Etsy shop. It was like a whole like setup. And so every like job interview I had in college was me referring back to this experience I had in like middle school or high school. And I think a lot of my hiring managers were really intrigued by that because it was just not something that a lot of other people were doing, and it showed like a sense of like entrepreneurship, initiative. So from a hiring standpoint, I think it does help. Maybe not fully, it doesn't like override your other factors or qualifications, but definitely adds some sort of like memorability factor and uniqueness to your profile.
Oh, you want to hear my answer to you? Oh, yeah. I also had a similar experience. I had a big Tumblr blog when I was in middle school and high school. It got like 10K followers, and I was just getting brand deals. I was a 17-year-old, so I couldn't get
Oh,
paid. I was
really?
16, 17. Yeah. It was like I run Graceface on Tumblr, and it's like really cute. I had like a graceful food Instagram too. I just made food, or I called it Graceful Food because it's like my name. And I would get sent so much PR packages. This is like
Oh,
2013.
fun.
20
2013?
yes,
Wow.
2013.
That's so cool.
Yeah, OG days. I talked about that on my job applications as well, and it was also interesting. I feel like you should own your side hustles and own like what you did when you're younger. But I've also had pushback in a sense that depends on the role. I was interviewing for like UX design role where they were just like, I think I was just on my portfolio. I had like everything on it. They were just like confused what role I was applying for. Cause I could be like social media
Oh,
role,
I
it could be like
see.
graphic designer, not UX designer. So it's like finding the balance between like your skills you want to emphasize for the job, but also like being able to showcase your personality and like how how led to where you are today. So I guess like for example, if I'm interviewing for, like a social media company, then I would mention my social media experience. If I'm interviewing for like B2B SaaS, I would not. So I guess
B2B
like kind of depends.
sauce.
B2B SaaS, AI, agentic. Anyway, that's all the billboards on the highways.
That's so funny the way you said it.
Like, everyone's so into B2B SaaS, AI, agentic, MCP, LLM, llama. These are buzzwords I hear at birthday parties in SF.
Oh my gosh, not the SF like AI talk.
You guys speak literally a different language than me. It's hilarious. But like I mean, I have a very similar perspective. It's I feel like everyone that has been a bad hire for declassified has had a traditional resume of like the perfect
Mm.
student club, the perfect internship, the perfect job offer, whatever it may be. And those personas are always looking for me to tell them exactly what to do, right? Like they're built as a soldier essentially. But every
Oh,
time
I
that
see what you're
I've
saying.
hired yeah, right? Like every time that I've hired someone who has something like off the beaten path, whether it's like they are able to talk about their Yu-Gi-Oh collection or Pokemon collection or like credit card churning, whatever it may be, it's like that at least shows me that they've got initiative outside of the cheat code of college or whatever, like of like that
Oh,
path
yeah.
of investment banking or to Fang or whatever it may be. And so like that's what I've noticed. And that's why I try to get people to always try to go on a random side quest too, because it might lead you down content, it might lead you down whatever it may be. But I think that's how you develop as a person of just perspective and like motivation to do things outside of what you're just told to do in school. Um,
Yeah, that
but
makes a lot
yeah,
of sense.
that's sort of my perspective on it.
I'm also curious, like, since you also work a 9 to 5, I've experiences at EA where a lot of my coworkers all around the company seen my content and they send it to everyone.
They
Um,
send it to everyone?
like good and bad.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I got this feedback. I was like dancing in my cubicle, making a cute little day in my life, and they're like, "Grace, you're having too much fun. Stop dancing at work."
Mm.
It's really funny. But I'm so curious. Like, did you ever have any experiences? Like, have your coworkers seen your content? How do you balance being like really cool online versus like having like a corporate job and like managing like your brand at work and also brand online?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a very complicated question. I think it depends on who you ask because on like a previous team that I was on, I had this director who like follows me on Instagram, and he would tell our coworkers, he was like, "Oh, do you know Lillian's like an Instagram influencer? Like it's super cool." Like it was very positive. I was like, Oh, I never know what to say.
I get that. I can see that. It's like because it's like, what do you say to that? It's a great compliment, but it's like,
It's like, oh, it's
yes,
like you kind of it's like I don't want to play down what I'm doing, but it's also like, oh, I can't just be like, oh yeah, like it's this big thing. It's like, oh no, you gotta be humble and just be like, oh yeah, it's like this thing I do for fun and it's great, sort of thing.
has it ever caused any, not necessarily issues in your job, but I would imagine because you're in sort of that financial space, so you are being a little transparent on your
Mm-hmm.
like on your Instagram and your TikTok. I'm not sure if you've ever talked about your salary or anything like that, but I could imagine or I could see how people either get jealous or they're like,
Oh.
like how is Lillian doing this? How is she traveling? And I'm working nine to
Mm.
five every single day type of thing, like next to her or whatever, or the same company, same division, yada, yada, yada. Has that ever come up at all? Because I feel like that's a big concern for a lot of creators who have that 9 to 5 that they might want to start or they're worried about getting quote unquote too big while they're still in the company.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because when I first started out in the first like I'd say 2 years, I've been like really transparent about like numbers and stuff. But I feel like more recently, I feel like that's something less that I want to share and share more of my expertise and knowledge versus maybe like my personal, I guess, like benefits that I receive. And so I think that's the shift that I was more so making. But in terms of like actual coworkers and things, the really interesting thing about I guess my experiences in corporate is that I tend to be like the youngest person by like a long shot, and I still feel like people kind of don't view me as like in their age group. So I feel like to explain more, like if I was comparing myself to like a 10-year-old, like I wouldn't really compare myself to that person because they're just like not in my like field of relevancy. So I kind of feel like that's what's happening. Like I'm like so far removed from like their life. Like there's not really anything to be, I guess, quote, jealous about because I'm so far removed from like their lives because they have like kids and like all these other responsibilities. It's just like a different world. So I feel like I don't really run into those issues currently or really ever, but like who knows what could happen, right? So I just try to filter it in terms of like if someone from my team saw this, like would I be okay with them seeing it? That's like the filter I'm using. And so I think with full-time creators, you can be very transparent in what you say, but I think for the corporate creators, you just kind of have to be mindful of like what you're sharing by yourself. So it's just a bit different.
That's so. This is my last like comment on this because I think you're on a great team, which I think is amazing. Right? I've heard some horror stories. I'll tell one. I won't say the name of the person or the company, but a big tech company, quote unquote, unlimited PTO on a quote unquote remote team. Right? So there's this guy. He's absolutely doing a great job in his job. Right? But his goal was to live in 52 cities in 52 weeks and really take advantage of like being able to travel at work and everything like that. So he started doing it, started posting on his Instagram story. His boss caught, like, I noticed that he stopped posting on his Instagram story randomly. So I hit him up and I was like, yo, like, are you still traveling around? He's like, yeah, I am, but I can't post it on my Instagram story and stuff because my team was getting mad at, because they're all like, why is he able to travel so much, but I can't? And so, like, I've heard the opposite side of yours. Um,
Wow.
but I would say like you're on a great team. Like that's amazing that they're so open minded to it. Obviously, you work at a platform that creates content, right? Like Google owns YouTube, but
Mhm.
also at that point, like this person worked at a content company too, which
Oh,
is
I
even
see,
the
I see.
funnier part of it all because he was trying to build like a travel vlog type thing at the
Ah.
time, and
The
so
irony is just really interesting. I understand.
exactly,
They're just
Yeah.
exactly.
jealous. Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta like tread your waters carefully and just be careful like what you say. Yeah.
Yeah, legal was on my ass actually. Like I can't show any work I done at EA because I don't know, like I ran through my case study through my manager. It said was okay, but legal just doesn't like me, I think, because I share too much online. I think I shared my salaries. That's probably why.
Oh, yeah,
HR
I
was on
see. Yeah,
my
yeah.
ass, but I'm just like, it helped me go viral, but it helped me like get more customers for like design buddies and stuff. But I don't know, I was really kind of funny. Um
Yeah,
I don't know, I
yeah.
had a good time at EA overall, but just, like, they didn't like me because I was showing too much on LinkedIn, so you have a really great team.
Oh, yeah, I see. I think one thing that's like a really interesting takeaway that I've learned from your conversation and also my own experience as well is like sort of like separating your own brand versus the company you work at. I would say from like a personal anecdotal perspective, when I was in college, I really admired the people who made like day in the life at X company content. And I've done that myself. Like I made like day in the life as a product marketing manager at, I don't know, Silicon Valley. I made tons of videos like that. But I think as I sort of thought more long term about my content brand, I wanted to separate my own brand as much as possible from the company I was working at or the current job title I hold because what if one day I don't work here anymore or one day I'm not in this position anymore, then all the followers you gain who follow you for that content won't be interested anymore. So that's sort of also a reason why a lot of my content is focused around like my own experience in something or things I've learned or tips versus like me in this specific like setup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Don't tie yourself to a company. Yeah, I've seen people like on LinkedIn especially, was like, here's how I landed my six-figure job at Google or at Meta, steps you can take. And every post is like, how I landed my job at Google, how I landed my job at Meta. I've seen that.
Yeah.
So yeah. What are some of your goals as a content creator?
Goals, I'd say like the main reason that I'm doing all this, like the motivation behind like why I'm doing this, especially on days where it's like, oh, like I need to see, like understand the purpose of why I'm doing this, is mostly to impact and help people and become like a resource that someone can go to that the younger version of me would want to hear from. And that's been like a motivating driver for me, but also definitely like scaling my brand and my knowledge as well so I can keep doing this for a long time is definitely something that I'm constantly thinking about and trying to figure out. I definitely don't have all the answers, but it's definitely just like a step-by-step thing.
Yeah, I like that perspective, like being a voice, being like someone talking to a younger version of yourself and not necessarily
Yes.
tying yourself to one niche and not putting yourself in a box. 'Cause oftentimes I feel like creators, especially like these like quote unquote people who call them like Instagram gurus, they tell people like you got a niche, you gotta like own your niche and like do everything about your niche. But at the same time, you can also be successful as a creator for just being yourself and putting your perspective, just like content you would tell you of yourself. I love that.
Oh, yes, for
Mm.
sure. It's definitely like you are the niche is like
Mhm.
the trendy saying.
Yeah.
Could you take a step back, Lillian? And again, you don't have to talk exact numbers, but you've
Uh-huh.
talked about how your income as a creator has basically doubled almost every year. And so from that though, has your percentage of revenue changed from like at least from a declassified lens, right? We were 100% of brand deals at our first year, second year is like 50-50 between brand deals and consulting, and then now it's like 5% of our revenue actually comes from brand deals now because the ed
Wow.
tech market at least has, at least from our perspective, hit the fan. And so we don't get a lot of brand deals in like the ed tech space
Oh, I see.
anymore. um Obviously you've been able to make the transition into finance, personal finance, lifestyle, things of that nature, but has your rev split changed over the course of the past 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, it's become a little bit of a smaller percentage, but it's still the main portion because the other revenue streams that I mentioned earlier in the pod are significant, but not as significant as like brand partnerships. And so I'd say it's like an 80-20 split right now between brand sponsorships and like everything else.
What is like the biggest brand deal you ever done? If you feel comfortable sharing.
In terms of like the company,
Yeah, in terms of like how much like money wise. You don't have to mention company if you don't want to. And what was like the deliverable for that?
I would say it's around like shy of 30K for a few videos and like some usage. But yeah, I'd say like that's pretty the biggest one that I've
Wow, that's a
gotten.
lot.
Yeah.
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 What kind of what was like a big company or like what industry if you're open to?
Education.
Oh, education.
Yeah, education companies can pay if you pitch it the right way.
How do you pitch education companies the right
Like
way?
it really depends if you can hit it right. Again, from my like declassified standpoint, our brand deals have dried up, so the market at least shifted
Mm.
on us. But like 2022, like 2021, 2022, a little 2023 for the edtech space, I mean, you could charge like anything you wanted.
In the
These brands were
wazoo.
it was insane. Like I think our biggest brand deal was like, and we were maybe at 250, maybe 300,000 followers across like Instagram and stuff like that, mainly on TikTok. And we were getting on average like 7 to 15 grand per post that we were putting out, which was kind of
17 to
insane.
50? You said 50?
No, 7 to 15 grand per post.
Oh,
So like
I
some
was
brand
like,
deals
damn,
like
50.
no. I mean, we've done like I think we did a 8 video deal for like 65K before. And
Yeah.
so like that's around like 8K ish per post or so. Um but yeah, we would get anywhere between like 7 to 15 grand per post during the heyday of edtech. I think the edtech market's starting to swing up a little bit more now. But
So
man,
why did
that
it dry up, you think?
uh well, so we had a deal. I've talked about this on I think my first episode. We had a deal with an edtech company for 7 figures, 2022 going into 2023, and we were about to sign. We were like maybe 1 to 2 meetings away from signing it, and then the tech market. That's when the tech market just
Mm.
cratered. And so I think ever since then, ed tech specifically has been one of the slowest portions within tech to re-establish their spending money in marketing, specifically B2C marketing. And so I think that's why. Like Meta, Snap, all those have done well kind of since that sort of post-COVID crater. But EdTech, it seems it's going very slow. Again, at least from my perspective and
Wow.
a lot of people that I've talked to.
Oh, that's really interesting. That makes a lot of sense, though. I feel like Grace said, B2B SaaS is where it's at.
B2B SaaS. Oh my god, yeah, like a lot of the companies we work with, they want to sell to like decision makers, like senior designers, design leaders, design directors, because they're B2B SaaS. They're trying to sell the companies. So we had to reevaluate strategy a little bit and like target more senior designers. But there's also companies like Adobe who spend a lot of money on junior designers because I feel like there's also a lot of potential in investing more like a younger audience. Think of it like McDonald's, right? They have the Happy Meal. They give it to their kids to hook them when they're young. So like these
See,
SaaS
but
Right.
tools, you
even
can hook
that's
them when they're young.
changing. I don't know if
Oh.
you've like so I started doing some research into why fast food prices have started going up. Like this is just what pops up on my YouTube. Welcome to my brain, essentially. But apparently, because of how much food is costing in fast food land, they've had to shift their marketing away from kids. So like when we were growing up,
Mm.
it was all about the Happy Meal, right? It was about playgrounds within McDonald's. Everything was geared towards kids. Nowadays, I think it said most of marketing is geared towards like the 25 to 40-year-old 9 to 5 worker that doesn't have much time and they're trying to
Mm.
just like get a meal quickly, but it's like not catered towards kids at all. I mean, even if you look at a lot of the Happy Meal toys, it's like our generation that wants to go and get that stuff, whether it's the Travis Scott collab, whether it's a Pokemon collab or whatever.
Oh,
It's less
yeah.
about kids and more about like our generation, which is kind of interesting to think about.
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting case study. I feel like there's a huge market for like the corporate worker and like saving time. That's a huge market.
And like productivity, B2B SaaS tools.
B2B SaaS.
Yeah, B2B. I love how I always
Justin
say
is
like
just like,
B2B.
no.
I hate it here. I hate it here.
I should make
So
that a
funny.
sticker. Be like B2B SaaS.
This should be like an
Look, it
Instagram reel like snippet.
Yeah. But yeah,
Oh,
I
so
also
funny.
like ship posts on LinkedIn. We're actually building bunny to bunny SaaS. Well, like a
Bunny
bunny
to
game for
bunny.
yeah, because we need bunny to bunny. That's
Is that real?
Yeah, I can send you the link too. We have an actual bunny to bunny sass. It's not real bunnies, but it's just like you can become a bunny. It's like an AI tool we built to tell you why your portfolio sucks and what
Oh,
you can do
wow.
to improve it. I'll send it in the chat.
It's like an AI
Um,
agent.
kind of. It's like you submit your
Uh-huh.
portfolio. It's like in alpha right now, but it tells you why your portfolio sucks, but you're a bunny. Because design buddies is bunnies. Um, yeah, anyways, that's our B2B SaaS.
Oh, that's so cool though.
Money to money SaaS.
Fun,
Yeah, but
fun.
it's interesting. Like I feel like a lot of brands are targeting more. I've noticed this in my sponsorship chats with design buddies too, is they are more excited when I have more senior people in the room because of decision makers that can bring the product to their team to
Mm.
have a B2B sale. Um I feel like I like emphasize. I don't know why I talk in that tone. I'm just like I feel like I hear these terms so much in SM. It's like ooh.
It's like a meme at this point.
Yeah. But
I
it's
could
like I
tell
don't
you,
know.
I come from small town Connecticut. B2B SaaS is never spoken in that world at all. It's so interesting, like talking to Grace more and more, right? And obviously you as well, Lillian. Like you guys come from sort of like the Bay Area.
Mhm.
It's it's such a different world than like where I've grown up, and but it's dope to see the different mindsets of both places.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a bubble in Silicon Valley. Huge bubble. It's insane.
How do you feel like growing up in this bubble influenced how you are today?
I feel this is such a funny tangent. Because I was literally just making a video. You know, on TikTok right now, Cupertino as a city is blowing up. Like, it's going really
I've
viral.
seen this. Like they talk about the weather
Yeah.
app. It's like
It's
I have bad
because
weather.
the weather sucks in most of the country right now, and Cupertino's the default city, and people are just really mad that Cupertino is just constantly sunny, 85 degrees every day. And so they're just kind of like pissed off about it.
When you talk about Cupertino, I should make a reel about growing up in Cupertino
Oh no,
now.
you should. It's actually a very unique experience.
Yeah, I could tell people about my summers I spent during SAT boot camps. The parents asked
Yeah.
me what school I'm going to. They rank
Yeah.
kids, Kumon, HS2. Yeah.
Excel. All those funny things. But to answer
Mhm.
your question, I think it's also like a very warped sense of like high achievement and I guess like discipline. Because I feel like in Cupertino, everyone is Asian. So you put all these Asian people together, like what are you getting? You're basically just getting like so much like academic pressure, competition, and just like, you know, go to college, like go to this path, whatever. And so I think because of that, growing up in the Bay Area has just made me a lot more, I guess, like hardo in a sense, where it's like I spend my content talking about like career and like financial tips because I think a lot of my background influenced that and just the way that I think about these topics and going to school in the Bay Area, all these things. And so I think I'm just like a very like type A disciplined person from this experience. And then just like never left me, you know?
Do your parents know about the side quest portion of your life?
Oh, my parents, I'm very transparent with everything. So they know like everything that's going on. Like they're very happy for how this has all worked out. Yeah.
That's dope. I was gonna ask because like you've succeeded from the quote unquote traditional path, right? Of getting the product marketing role over at Google and like hitting Fang, especially coming from the Bay Area. And then I was always I'm wondering what their perspective would be on like the content creator side, right? Because it's completely different to like or our parents' generation. It was never even a thought of it. So that,
Yeah.
but that's dope that it seemed to be like supporting you and they know about it and everything like that.
Well, I'd say the funny thing about the support is like they would only support it if I keep everything. If I like quit my corporate, they would not support that. That's the catch. But they support the content thing in conjunction with this.
Okay, I can relate to that. I can relate to that.
I don't know
I
if
think it's an
you
Asian
can also
thing.
like if at this part out if you don't, I want to skip it. But would you ever quit your job and do content full time?
Depending on the answer that I end up giving you, we'll decide whether we cut this out or not.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm
Okay, I'm
just
trying to
curious.
think. Okay, so essentially the thing with content is that I feel like it's always like a constant hamster wheel of like production and stuff, where in the sense of if I stop and drop everything now, like all the revenue would stop. Technically. I mean, that's how a job works too, but I just think because of the risk associated, it's just like a different type of risk. And so my whole thinking around this is that I don't have like a separate, I guess, like company name where if I were like the CEO of this other like entity and stepped away, like there would still be customers or clients or like revenue coming in. But if I step away from my own brand right now, it would pretty much stop. So I think the question here is like, how do you build a sustainable brand that's not necessarily fully tied to you? When you step away, it will still keep going. And I feel like with my one person brand, I don't think that's the answer. And so on that alone, I wouldn't quit my 9 to 5 unless I create something else that can stand without me constantly being in it. That's
That's
sort
a
of
really
my
great.
mindset.
That's a really great perspective.
Yeah.
Is there a number of money that you would, if you made as a creator, that you would feel comfortable quitting your 9 to 5?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So, in my perspective of like how finances would work for me personally, I feel like right now it's like if you've heard of like financial independence, retire early, the concept is basically when you're like stacking as much as possible, and then once you hit that like amount, regardless of how you made the income, is when you can be like, oh, I can like find I can do things where like those investments are like paying me back in a sense. And so I feel like that's more of my mindset where it's like I don't really think about how I'm generating income. It's more like if all my income sources were summed up together and they got me to like some arbitrary amount, then I think that's mostly the path that I'm on. Like it
Do
doesn't
you
really
have your
matter if I
fire
do it
number?
through content. I have a number in mind, but I keep that I guess like in my head and
Gotcha.
I try to like I don't know. I think expectations will change as, get married, have kids, and I just think like the number I have right now might not be something that would actually be the number once, life goes on. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's
Because
just
what is it?
like
It's what, 2% rule, or is it
it's like
3%?
4% rule, but it's also like for me it's like I want that fire number and like a paid off house in the Bay Area. And so it's like I don't know, the math is not mathing. So I don't know. I
Bay
don't
Area
have
is
an
rough.
answer. I don't have an answer.
Um, so for those who are listening that don't know the concept of fire, so basically it's like, as Lillian was saying, it's about trying to get to a number and then you live off of 4% of whatever that number is, because that's the number that's in your investments, I think. So if you live off of 4%, it technically should never go down, right? With the how markets work and everything like that. So I think for me, I'll be transparent. Like my number is 10 to 20 million, because I think that gives you what, like 4 to 800K um, a year that you're able to live off of. And like I don't need anything fancy, but I think that would allow me to live an amazing life off of that. Some people's
Mm,
numbers are a lot less. Some people's numbers are a lot higher, especially if you live in the Bay Area compared to, I'm in Texas now, but even in Florida, right? Like we don't have income tax and things like that, so it makes
mm.
it a lot easier to fire on some of, or on a number like that. But yeah, that's the whole concept of fire. I've been fascinated by it. For those who don't know, again, it's on Reddit. Like that's the whole
Oh yeah.
thing, a whole subreddit, like fire and fat fire, which is like retiring early, but just a lot better, so to say, like with more money and like more extravagant things. But yeah, I love that concept. We'll all get there one day, but it's amazing.
Yeah. I've gone through that Reddit rabbit hole and fire so many times. And I think it's just like an interesting goal to work towards, not because I would stop working completely. I think I would still do like my personal projects, but I think it gives you more freedom to like do things that maybe you don't want to do just because you're obligated to do them.
Chasing time and location freedom could be the
Yeah,
goal too. Yeah.
for sure. Depends what your
I
goals are.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know my fire number as well. I feel like my goals always change. I could always live bigger. I want a private jet. That's a
It's the
I-
hedonic treadmill. The hedonic
it is. I
treadmill.
can always go bigger.
It's always changing, and that's not a bad thing because you want to aspire to more, like you want to be more ambitious, but there's like at some point there's a level where you're happy with what you're at, I guess. I don't know. I could be wrong about this.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm just like more. But I also like trying to enjoy every day. But I'm just like, oh, I can like work towards a goal. But I don't actually need a private jet. I just that's like a moonshot goal maybe one day. I always change my life goals like every year. So yeah,
Oh yeah. I
last year was
mean,
like
yeah.
private jet.
Because we're still like really young, there's still just
Mhm.
more possibilities to like envision for your future. So I understand that.
Yeah, I like went on the 6 month world tour. I took so many airplanes. And I just like don't like airports. So I was just like private jet. Then that's why.
Oh, dude, yeah, airports. Yeah, if you go to airports a lot, it's like a big time suck too.
Exactly. So that's why I was like private jet. But yeah.
Have any of you been on a private jet before?
No.
I've
No.
never. I've never have. I haven't gotten that invite yet. But apparently it sucks because it's so
Oh, does it?
small. Like the
Oh.
convenience is nice, but the plane itself, since it's small, it like moves a ton, especially like when you're trying to land and things like
Uh-huh.
that. So like turbulence hits it hard. I've never, again,
Oh.
I've never experienced it.
Uh-huh.
Obviously it costs a ton of money, but that does seem kind of scary. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like you're
that's
gonna
true.
die easier. 'Cause you're yeah. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Well, probably not private jet. It's smaller, so it's like it's easier, like turbulent, and it's easy for something to mess up and like
Yeah, the
fall on a
risk is
mountain and
higher.
die.
The risk is a
Yeah.
lot higher for sure compared to commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
It's
I know we're
cool.
getting towards time, Lillian. So I've got one last question. I'm not sure if Grace, if you've got one last question, but my question is you've talked a lot about different revenue streams, right? Obviously, it seems like the next one on that list is this book that's coming out. Is there one book that you would recommend to anyone who's listening to the show? Now, that could be around anything. It could be finance as a creator, researching, whatever it may be. But is there that one book that you feel has kind of that has really made an impact on your life that everyone should read?
Yes, this one's a really popular book, but it's The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And that's just been a really impactful like book because I think the lessons that he shares in the book. Oh my gosh, you have it. He has a second book coming out, I think really soon. But his lessons about like the way that you think about like wealth and time, I think is very prevalent in our lives, which is probably why it's such a big success. And so that book has really impacted me, and so I recommend you to read it.
It's on my list, literally. So I got it, haven't read it yet, but super interested to see because it's been recommended a ton
Mm-hmm.
from a
Oh,
lot of people.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. Have you read 4 Hour Work Week? That changed my perspective in like life.
Oh, okay, I've like skimmed it and I read some of it, but I also feel like it was written like a really long time ago
Yeah.
because it wasn't
Virtual
like
assistants.
super.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't
Oh.
think it's super relatable, at least for our generation, but I understand
Yeah.
like the idea of it. But also I feel like with books like that, they're kind of selling you a lifestyle in the same in a sense. Like, oh, we're only 4 hours away in your life. Or per
So
day or whatever.
I just reread it. So I read it like 7, 8 years ago, and I literally just finished rereading it this morning. I agree that it is definitely outdated. There's some aspects of it that are outdated, but I love the mindset that Tim talks
Mm,
about in it. And I think that's the most important thing is the mindset of understanding and realizing that you can outsource a lot of the things in your life
right.
without
Yes.
or like that people don't think about outsourcing. And I don't think it's about working 4 hours a week. I think that was just a good title. Most of the
Mm,
stories and anecdotes in there are people working like 10, 15 hours a week, but they're generating a lot of income. I think, and Grace, you can correct me if I'm wrong when you read it, but for me, it was all about like, I like to call myself a lazy person. And this book encapsulated that, where it was like, how can you make or find a way to make the most money with the least amount of work so you can actually live life doing life
mm,
rather than live life working. So that was like
right.
what I had gotten out of it, at least. And there's a lot of anecdotes in there that kind of talk about that. But obviously, right now with AI and everything, I think if you take some of the learnings within the book and then you combine it with figuring out how to leverage ChatGPT or whatever it may be to automate portions of your life, I think you can do that book on steroids, in my opinion.
Oh, that's a
Because
really
he talks
funny
about
way of
VA
explaining it.
stuff. Yeah, because he,
Oh,
he talks about
yes.
VAs and everything, but you could theoretically get an agent to do it for even a fraction of the price of what you would pay someone overseas to do, technically.
Oh, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, time to automate more. Yeah, we use AI a lot in our team at Design Buddies to replace to not save money on hiring.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah. My last question is, as a finance creator, I'm sure you're always like consuming and seeing a lot of financial advice out there. How would you go about deciding which one works for you, which one to apply? Because I'm sure there's so many like opinions and like ways of doing things out there. How do you like go about filtering it for what you want to follow up with?
Oh, interesting. I feel like I consume a lot of financial content because a lot of my creator friends are also in the space, so I think I naturally see a lot of it. Um, there's not like right answer in terms of what content to consume. I think like people consume content for different reasons, and I think a big reason why people would watch a specific creator specifically is because they maybe come from a certain background or they look a certain way that is relatable to the viewer. So for example, like 70% of my audience is female and around like my age range. So I feel like when people see someone like maybe like your age or similar background, they're more inclined to hear your insights because you are closer to that person's lived experience versus like a Gen X or a boomer who's like talking to you like a textbook or a lecture. So I feel like it's just more of like the relatability factor. And I also want to plug my book, which is geared towards Gen Z. And so that's the whole thing where it's like the author, which is myself, talking about like lived experiences and problems and issues faced by our generation that the author can actually relate to and speaking in the same tone. And actually, it's available for pre order right now on everywhere books are sold. And so, oh, actually, a quick like side thing that I learned about the publishing industry. The reason why pre-orders are such a big deal in the publishing industry is if you've seen your like favorite author like promoting their pre-orders, but you don't a lot of people like don't want to buy it until after it's out. But the reason why pre-orders are so important is that it tells like the publisher like if more books should be printed, if they should prioritize this in rankings and in retail placement. So if there are a lot of pre-orders, it will signal to Amazon and Barnes and Noble that they should print more copies and distribute more, put it onto like more visible places versus a book that has less pre-orders signals to them that it's not a very popular book. And the reason why a lot of books go on to bestsellers list in the first week of it being actually published is because all the pre-orders you collect from pre-published date count as the orders on day one when it's actually published. So that's why the whole pre-order thing is a big deal for a lot of first-time authors. And that was a very interesting fact that I learned.
Where can
Yes.
people find your book and pre-order it?
Yes, so if you Google the new money rules, the Gen Z Guide to Personal Finance on Google, it will be on everywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. I'm working on my website right now to like update all the links and stuff, but if you just Google search my name and like book, it will show up.
Oh, yeah, it's on Amazon too.
Yes, let's
Wow,
get that. Let's get
cool.
that to an
Yeah.
Amazon bestseller. I don't
Yes,
know if
let's
this hack
go.
still works or not,
Hmm.
but this is a hack that I learned from some other friends who were authors, and so friends that were trying to leverage it to get speaking engagements. So again, this is
Ah,
how it
yes.
worked before. I don't know if it still works anymore, but basically, what my friends would do is on day of release, they would make the book only a penny and they would make the book available in a super super niche thing. So I think one of my friends did one in like internship. So like no books are ever really being sold in the internship category on like Amazon or whatever.
Hmm.
And he would send it to all his friends and be like, "Hey, if you want to buy 100, it's like $1 or whatever it is, right?" And so he would lose money or maybe they lose money on the book or whatever it may be, but it would allow him to rank up on Amazon bestseller for that day. And he just takes a screenshot. And then it would allow him to use that screenshot as Amazon bestselling author to charge like 5, 10, 20 grand as a speaking engagement because now you're an Amazon
Oh,
bestseller. And so,
I
again, I'm not
see.
sure if it still works or not. I know you can't game like the New York Times bestseller and things like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
apparently, again, this is before you could game the Amazon one for
Oh,
to get the
wow.
little thing. And like people have gamed it for like ebooks and things like that too. So you don't have to do it with like a hardcover book.
Was he traditionally published or self-published?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Mm.
So I would assume maybe it was self-published. That was how he was able to change the pricing and things like that and not
Ah, I
lose too
see.
much.
Mm.
But like I've seen people do that for ebooks as well. And so like you're literally not at a cost like at all, right?
Hmm.
Because you're only charging a penny and people aren't having to print it out. But it could be an interesting ROI if you leverage it correctly.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I've never thought about it that way.
Again,
I'll
But
do
yeah,
I
I'm
that.
don't know if it
prioritizing
works anymore though.
pre-orders. I'm prioritizing pre-orders. Yes.
Yes. Let's make that into an Amazon bestseller. 100%. The legit way.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Legit way.
Yes,
Yes.
the legit way.
It'll
Yeah,
be in the show
spicy.
notes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've learned so many spicy hacks from Justin and his conversations with his friends about the spicy things they do, and I love it.
It's really
I love
interesting to
little
hear.
like black hat
Uh-huh.
and white hat stuff. It's that gray area that I like to
Mm.
I like to hear about from other people.
Me
That's why I started
too.
the show too, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
fun stuff that you can learn.
Yeah, I feel like
Yes.
more people are probably more comfortable talking about it like in person. But I also learned that from Justin that from his not him but like his friend, like from other people that like most of the big YouTubers, a lot of big YouTubers they buy their views too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On sponsored, some big YouTubers buy views on their sponsored videos to get to a certain amount. So there's some YouTubers out there that you'll see if you like do enough digging that their view count will hit a minimum almost every video, whether it's 100K, 500K, whatever it may
Mm.
be. So let's say they put it out. Let's just say the benchmark is 100, right? And they put it out and it kind of flops. So it'll be stuck at like 65K or 80K or whatever it may be. They'll buy 10,000, 20,000 views in like a cheap place like India to buy the views. So it might cost them $1,000, $5,000 or whatever it may be, but they'll keep that delta between what they charge for the video and how much it costs for them to get to that minimum benchmark so that they can re-up with that brand partner the next time and charge them more.
Oh,
So again,
interesting. Huh.
just interesting to
That sounds a little bit
to
unethical, though.
I mean, yes and no, but like I've also seen it be done in the corporate world, like with people in their jobs too. So like I know of corporations who have bought viewers on live streams, like corporate live streams, to make it
Oh.
seem like there's more viewers for their boss
Oh, I
because the
see.
boss is never gonna
Oh.
check in, right? Like you always have to think about it from the micro incentive standpoint of people is like the person that sold you the brand deal, they don't want to look like they lost money
To their
on the brand
boss.
deal to their boss. And it's
Mm.
all just being able to
The
keep your
cycle.
job, right? So it's very
Oh.
interesting. But yeah, just little things that I've picked up here and there.
Oh, wow.
Both on the creator lens, but also again, it happens in corporate too.
Mm. That makes sense.
Spicy. Yeah, I would never buy views. I feel like it's like
Yeah, I've never done
bleh.
that either.
Yeah, me either. I see a lot of like big corporate Instagrams with like a lot of followers, but their posts get like 1 like.
No,
Cute.
real. It's like
Yeah.
we know you bought the views and the followers.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy world, crazy world. But thank you, Lillian, for coming on to the show. I think this was a great episode, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Yeah, and we'll drop your book link and your social links in the comments as well, in
Oh,
the
yes.
description as well.
Thank you for having me. This is super fun.